In 2004, Bungie released a follow-up to their masterpiece of a game, Halo Combat Evolved. This sequel would be known as Halo 2. No subtitle this time. This entry changed things up a bit, mixing up game mechanics and sandbox elements alike. This made some improvements to Halo Combat Evolved's gameplay, but today we're not discussing those changes. I want to answer the question instead, can you beat Halo 2 without jumping? If you missed my last video, we did the same challenge for Halo Combat Evolved. I'd highly recommend watching it first as I go in depth about some of the tricks that will be returning here. But before we get started, I want to go over a few things. First of all, I will be using everything in the vanilla game to try to complete this challenge. This will include glitches and skulls that exist in the Anniversary Edition of Halo 2. I'm choosing this version as it is a copy of the game that most people are familiar with, and it is also the most easily accessible if you're looking to try this challenge for yourself. Similar to the first video, since I'm including the skulls, I'm disqualifying straight grenade launching, since it is basically a grenade jump that would make the challenge way too easy. If you would consider skulls cheating period, that is fair, but since they are included in MCC, I will make use of them only if absolutely necessary to progress. It also seems that a majority of people who commented on the last video agreed that skulls are fair game given how we put them to use. Finally, once again, for this challenge, I've unbound my jump key so that instincts don't kick in and I jump. Halo 2 has 15 missions, which is 5 more than Halo Combat Evolved. Although one of them is an intro cinematic, so in this case we're starting on mission 2, which is the Armory. This mission serves as an intro to the basic controls, like the cryo room did in the previous game. It may sound dumb to include this, but it did serve as a slight obstacle last time, so I wanted to make sure to clear it this time. So we once again learn to walk, look around, and learn about our shield recharge, which functions differently this time. We no longer have to maintain health bars that caused the issue in the last run, and these shields recharge faster. Luckily, this time, they do not try to teach us how to jump. Once we finish this training, we enter the train with Johnson, we ride this, and once we get off, we go on to the next mission, Cairo Station. Cairo Station is easy to complete with this challenge. There are stairs linking the different floors of the station, and even elevators at some portions. The only part I would expect a challenge from is the space walks, but due to the low gravity while outside the station, all the slopes are easy to climb, and there's no obstacles blocking progression. The combat challenges that come in this game are from the new enemy types, like drones and specialist elites, and other enemies we'll see a little bit later, along with the smarter enemy AI. Despite this making combat encounters slightly harder, the new shield and health system is more forgiving, balancing it out and making enemy encounters overall less taxing for our challenge. Next up is the mission Outskirts. Given that the layout of this level is a war-torn city, I thought it would give us a lot of trouble. After all, in Halo CE, our biggest challenge was destroyed architecture. This would only be a challenge up till we get through Hotel Zanzibar. Past that point, the mission becomes a vehicle run-through, so that's basically our goal here. After the firefight in the courtyard, we made our way through the alleyways. The challenge did make it impossible to run across rooftops and to retrieve secret weapon stashes, but to make up for that, I simply nabbed Johnson's sniper off of him. Just barely though, he almost got away with it. After clearing out the Covenant, we finally made it to the hotel, and we were free to drive through the rest of the level. The fact that there was no debris in our way was a pleasant surprise. Metropolis is our next mission. Despite most of the mission involving trailing the Scarab, there's a surprising lack of devastation left in its wake. Rolling through the bridge section was a breeze, but once we exited the Scorpion, we come across a slight issue. Once you enter the tunnel on foot, it is impossible to go directly up the slopes connecting the roadway and the walkway. The only way through is on the walkway. So once we drop down, you would think that we were stuck, but fortunately for us, there is some debris that can be used like a ramp and get back up onto the walkway. But again, the walkway is blocked at this part. There's boxes in the ways. The question here is, are they movable? Yes they are. We can throw a couple of grenades and it moves them just enough to be able to squeeze through. Once through, we can exit the tunnels and there's another short vehicle section. Once we ride through on the Warthog, it's time to board the Scarab. I didn't want to risk trying to board at the end of the canal because I thought the gap between the walkway and the Scarab would be too wide, so instead I boarded it as it went under one of the bridges. After a few tries, because I suck, I'm able to complete the mission without jumping. After all that he's been through, Master Chief finally gets to take a break. Now we are playing as the Arbiter on the mission, the Arbiter. During this mission, we are introduced to the energy sword. This isn't the first time you can encounter it in Halo 2, but because of the challenge, this is the first time we're getting our hands on it. Here's the thing about the energy sword. It lets you lunge at opponents. If the reticle is red, no matter their location relative to you, you can reach them. This is huge for vertical mobility, which so far has been lacking. Halo 2 also lets you lunge with regular melees, which is not nearly as far as the sword's lunge, but we have not been able to make use of that just yet, but it will come back up. Anyways, the Arbiter's mission is to hunt down the heretic leader, so we do that. After trekking through the station, which is full of accessible ramps, we get to the section with the Banshees. This is a vehicle section, so it would not cause any issues anyways, but to save time, I skipped the level by flying to the end of the mission. The Oracle is the mission that reintroduces the Flood. If you remember the mission 343 Guilty Spark from Combat Evolved, you may recall this gave us a lot of trouble. I was terrified of having the same experience since the mission served the same purpose, but instead it wasn't that bad. I presume it's because the first part of the level is not quite destroyed as the facility in the first game, and for most of it you're riding down an elevator fighting the Flood. And then after that is just a brief firefight with the Flood. I used this section to start practicing with the sword and to truly see how it can help our vertical navigation, and I gotta say, I was impressed. Now it was time to go cut the cables to get to the next part of the mission. There is an elevator that goes to the top and then ramps that lead to the cables, so there's no issues there. After we chased him through the station, making use of the Arbiter's amazing active camo, I thought the boss fight with the heretic would be difficult, but as it turns out, it's not. Even though he has a jetpack, we also have a heat-seeking sword, so he was easily dealt with. Arbiter is yet to truly get challenged, but trust me, his time will come. Now we are back with Chief on the mission Delta Halo, my favorite level in the franchise. This mission is another massive vehicle-centric level. The first firefight at the ruins does not require any jumping, although it does prevent us from getting more rocket ammo. But that's okay because during this first little firefight, an elite drops a sword, and that is far more important to our challenge than a rocket launcher. We use the Warthog to get the bridge down, and then once the bridge is down, we get a tank and we roll up to the larger ruins. Once there, we are forced to dismount. Given how the ruins are crumbling, you would assume that there would be a lot of obstacles, but it was easy enough to navigate around a lot of the rubble. Then we get to the small valley that has jackals everywhere, and I thought this section would be more difficult. I thought it would require jumping up to get out of the valley once you go down, but as it turns out, there's a massive slope that you can use to walk right up. So with that, we wrap up Delta Halo. Now on to Regret. For this mission, you take multiple gondolas and elevators in order to reach the Prophet at the temple in the lake. So for this mission, it is all about the between sections, and we have our safety sword just in case there are any high ledges we need to reach. During this first part, I had a glitch where the hunters and the phantoms just vanished. So that's pretty cool. Didn't really affect the challenge, but cool glitch that helped us out a little bit. During the gondola section, I, as a kid mind you, always thought you had to board the other in order to restart them, but it turns out you can just start it from the one you are on. You learn something new every day. Not important to the challenge, but I just thought it was fun to mention. The underwater ruins had a lot of ramps, making it easy to navigate. The only challenge comes from the enemy honor guards, hunters, and some sniper jackals. Once we emerge, we are able to navigate through the rubble with no problem. Riding the final gondola, we are able to reach Regret and punch his lights out. We are now back following the Arbiter, and Sacred Icon hits like a literal truck. Right out the gate, there is a short wall blocking our progress. Taking a closer look at the wall, we can see there are slopes that we could walk up, but first we need to reach them. I tried pushing many of the boxes to reach it, and that didn't work. Grenades didn't give us a push we needed either. But after fooling around for a minute, sentinels start to spawn out of the ports in the walls. But here's the thing, we don't have the energy sword on this level. We spawn with a plasma pistol, so there's no sword lunge that we can make use of yet. So this is where I had a light bulb moment. Remember how I said the regular melee also has a small lunge? Like not nearly as much as a sword, not even close. Well, I was still able to make use of it. I attracted a sentinel over towards me, and with the right timing I was able to lunge up and get onto the part of the ledge that connected to the slope. So we are able to walk up the slope and onto the next little section. Thank gosh. We release the pillar to progress and we go down. It's probably really good that this mission takes you down instead of up, because if you had to hop onto these pillars to get up, that would be a nightmare scenario. I was really worried given that that was the first room of the level, but the next section was more forgiving. We fought through the next rooms and we deactivated the shield that was protected by the Enforcer. With the shield disengaged, we cross the chasm on a gondola, where we are immediately faced with our next challenge. The door to progress is several feet off the ground, and we still don't have a sword. Our regular lunge was not going to cut it this time, it was way too high. The checkpoint that I had kept sending me back across the chasm, so I had to ride the gondola every time I reset it. But this was actually a good thing because it led to a fortunate discovery. When the gondola rose up, I got launched, and when this first happened, I had no idea why it happened, so I went back and I watched the footage, and I figured out that this was caused by my hitbox colliding with the Enforcer's hitbox, and he smushed me against the geometry of the gondola, and I guess since I have the smaller hitbox, or maybe because I was sandwiched in between them, it caused me to launch. Given that glitches are our best ally in this challenge, I made a point to utilize this discovery. And so I mastered it. I was able to launch myself to the ledge above the door, and after it was opened, once enemies were cleared, I was able to drop in and start to progress. And then there was this. These short walls acted as hurdles. There was multiple of them. The melee lunge seemed like it was so close to working, but I could never get it to work no matter how many times I tried. After trying for several hours, I decided that clearing this part would not be possible with this method. But here's the thing, I'm an expert in terms of traversing without pressing the jump button. Remember in Halo Combat Evolved how the path to victory ironically lay in the Flood's hands? Yeah, it's time to put the Arbiter through that ringer. Halo 2 also has a Sputnik skull available that we used last time to help with this, but it also has the Feather Skull available. A brief summary of both of them. The Sputnik lowers the mass of objects, allowing for more movement physics to be imparted on them. Feather, on the other hand, does not decrease the mass. Instead, it increases the amount of displacement imparted by attacks, including gunfire, explosions, and yes, melee. So basically, the result is a light version of Sputnik. If you were to combine them, you get crazy results, but for this we're going to start by trying with the Feather Skull since it is the least game altering of the skulls. So once I reached this part again, I destroyed the sentinels to keep more flood combat forms around, and then I let them begin to strike me. During Combat Evolved Challenge, we kept elite combat forms and eliminated the human ones, because the elites would launch us further. For this case, we were stuck with just human forms because there were no elite forms yet. But with their combined efforts, they were able to get me over the ledge. The Arbiter's ability to use active camo was excellent in disengaging the enemies and letting us recharge our shields. I would hate to try this without it, because you don't get a checkpoint in between these little hurdles, and every time you die you'd go back to the first one, so you'd be trying to desperately dodge while recharging your shields. and Halo 2 Flood are a lot more aggressive in terms of keeping you hit. I would imagine the result would be like the montage we had for Combat Evolved, but luckily I didn't have to experience that. We did have to go over several more hurdles on this level, but we cleared around 5 more of them and we were able to descend through the pillar again. Once we got down there was another ledge we needed to clear, and the combat forms on this floor were distracted by an enforcer, but I was able to convince a few to come aside and help me out. Once we descend again, the level layout becomes more like the first section, so we're able to run through them while camouflaged, and a couple more floors to go, and look, we finally got an energy sword at the end of the level. Once we reach the ground, we clear out the flood, and with our elite reinforcements, we finish the level. After completion, I exited to the menu to turn off the skulls so that we are running the rest of it without skulls if possible. Quarantine Zone starts with a large vehicle section. We clash with enforcers, and we also clear fields of flood. Then our path is blocked by a crashed sentinel factory. I was slightly concerned about how the terrain may treat us, but we had our safety sword just in case. Luckily, we were able to navigate through while taking out flood and sentinels alike. The final section is another gondola. Luckily, the entire thing is made of ramps and flat surfaces. So once we reach the end of the ride, all we have to do is navigate the top floor of the library, and just like Combat Evolved, it gave us no issues. The next mission goes back to Chief with Gravemind. Ironically, this mission doesn't have the flood, despite being named after them. So Chief will get off easy for now, not having to deal with flood, but this mission does have a few difficulties. Most of the level is a breeze with easy slopes and gravity lifts that allow you to go between floors, but then there was a doorway, and this thing has a lip on the ground, and for some reason you can't walk over it. Also weird, a marine can walk right over it without jumping, but you the player can't. And despite having a sword at this part, there's no enemies to lunge at, so we can't really make use of that. Good news, there's a rock beside it. Even better news, there's a slope leading up to this rock. It takes a few times, but I'm able to drop down, but it's gotta be perfect, because you can't bump your head on the seal of the door or you will fall and not make it over the little lip on the floor. From here though, there are no issues, except for one hazard. It's not like an obstacle, it's a hazard, because it's like a trap for this specific challenge. If you go down to this area, you get stuck. You can't jump out, and if all the enemies are gone, well, you can't lunge down either. Luckily, it didn't save, so I just reloaded a checkpoint, and instead of going back down there, I just stayed out of the pool, for lack of better words, and we were able to clear the mission. Now, back to the Arbiter on mission Uprising. All the interiors are easy to clear thanks to ramps. We fight lots of brutes that gives us a bit of trouble, but we also have elites fighting by our side, so we clear them. There is a vehicle section that again trivializes the challenge. There is another interior section that we clear, and once we come out on the other side, we are finished with this mission. Nothing really to say about that one, it was pretty simple. The Chief's final mission is pretty short, and it's probably because a Warthog run was cut from it, but I'm not complaining, because guess what? That means less challenge complete. This is a flood level though, so anything could happen. There are these short sections where if we fall into the water, we could be doomed and not get back up, but we're able to just stay on the ledge, so it's easy to stay on track. The Prophets have an elevator that takes us to their inner sanctum, where we can grab a sword just in case, but we don't need it because we just go up one more gravity lift and we just run to the end of the level with no obstacles to clear this time. The Arbiter's final mission will end us off. First, we have to fight through the canyon to reach the next segment. It's no problem since we're in a wraith. We then fight through this section to reach the scarab. and I cannot stress how thankful I am for the Forerunners to use ramps in their architecture. Once we free these prisoners, we reach a Scarab where we get to take flight in a Banshee. We clear the way for Johnson and the Scarab, blasting through the doors to confront Tartarus. I was a little worried that the explosive entrance would make the entrance hard to navigate without jumping, but it was actually rather easy to walk through. When confronting Tartarus though, well, there's a bit of an issue now. This gap between us and the arena is a lot bigger than I thought it would be, and unfortunately I suck at the sword flying glitch. But I did manage to find a solution that requires a lot less skill. The sword lunge still helps us get into the arena. We just have to walk off the ledge and lunge Tartarus before we fall out of range. Luckily, I was able to do this consistently, as the fight itself is another challenge in and of itself. Turns out Tartarus is not that easy without the ability to jump in order to dodge. I ended up having to learn to sidestep, and I also flung tons of grenades and popped them with the beam rifle a lot. The arena was also easy to navigate given the central gravity lift and holes to drop down. I just had to make sure I was not cornered, and with enough teamwork with the elites and Johnson, we take the Mohawk down. With that, it is indeed possible to beat Halo 2 Anniversary without jumping, as long as you don't count skulls as cheating. That's a fair opinion given that they're not readily available in the original release. I think they count since they're vanilla in MCC and that's the version we're using, but it's whatever. Seems a lot of people also agreed they aren't cheating as long as we don't use them to inadvertently grenade jump. But again, that is up to everyone's own interpretation of the challenge. Before you go, I just want to thank you for watching this far, and if you tuned into the last video, or if you're going to watch it now, a huge thank you. It seems that everyone really enjoyed these challenge runs, and a lot of people subscribed after that one, lots of people left likes, a lot of people left comments, just expressing how cool it was that I managed to do that, and I'm really glad everybody enjoyed that video, because a lot of my content, I make it, and sometimes I just don't enjoy the process of making it. But when I came to this challenge run, I actually really did enjoy both of the ones I've done so far, and it was really cool to just see people actually enjoy the challenges and things I'm doing while I'm also enjoying it, because like I used to just make like funny moments videos or news videos, and those never really clicked for me because I would always get bored of them. But with these challenges, I feel like I could just go back to these games time and time again and just find new ways to enjoy it each and every time. So as of writing the script, y'all have almost got me to 1,000 subscribers, which is just crazy for me because I never thought I'd even get 100, but I mean, we're far surpassed that now and we're almost to the next milestone, and who knows what comes after that. But as a thank you, I want to host a Q&A for 1,000, so I'll be doing that. I don't know if I've hit 1,000 by the time I'm posting this video or not, or if I'm close, or when that'll happen, but we're just so close, so I want to prepare, and so we're doing a Q&A. So if you have questions you want answered, make sure to drop them in the comments, and if it's your first time watching, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss more videos. But again, I can't thank you enough, but I can only say it so many times and you still be here. So, finally, one more. Thank you for watching. I hope to see you in the next video. Bye-bye.